and welcome to the Mountainside Podcast. Our guest for the start of 2022 is Jason Nauert, a.k.a. Jason the Butcher. He is the owner and operator of the Rocky Mountain Institute of Meat, helping to train U.S. Special Operation Units on how to properly select, butcher, and cook while on deployments or whatever situation that they might find themselves in. I thoroughly enjoyed having Jason in the podcast studio. I'm glad that our schedules align, and I hope that you enjoy our conversation. Cheers. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Jason, thanks for making the trip up from the Springs, man. I'm excited to sit down with you. The last couple times that we tried to schedule this, it's been canceled, or every time that we schedule one of these things, it snows.
Yeah, something like...
So we just need to keep you need to come up once a week, dude.
I don't know if I can do once a week. I could try.
No, that's great. I'm just saying we need the snow bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
we didn't,
so
like,
dry.
Down in the Springs, we got, like, an inch, maybe
Really?
two. Like, that was a few days ago, and then yesterday, like, last night, it barely covered the grass.
Yeah.
It wasn't even worth, like, there's no moisture. I was like...
It's not getting much out of it, huh?
No,
Yeah. Have you guys had any fires down that way lately? Or is it, I mean, that one that blazed through here a week ago is insane.
We had a couple grass fires over by the Air Force Academy, but other than that, we haven't had anything to speak of. I mean, Fort Carson's on fire all the time because they're blowing stuff up, and
Yeah.
you know, they're like, "Hey, there's a fire." It's like, yeah, who cares? Fort Carson, let it burn.
Yeah. Well, I've been following you for some time on your Instagram. We had Jason Marsteiner in for our very first podcast ever.
Yeah.
And I think he gave you a shout out in that episode.
Yeah, I think he did.
And that's how we ended up connecting. And so yeah, I've been following you for some time, and I'm stoked to have you in here. I can't wait to get down and just dive into all the bloody details of your career and passion in what you do, man. So
the pun is intended.
Yeah. So go ahead and tell our listeners what you do exactly. You're a butcher, but you're much more than that. So
yeah, so technically you call me a butcher or whatever. But kind of how I describe my job is my intent was to open a butcher shop in Colorado Springs somewhere. You know, I have a long history of construction, and then I have a stint in law enforcement, and then I went back like kind of into construction. I got into landscaping, which I really enjoyed. I liked being outside. I ended up taking classes through CSU and stuff like that. That's all stuff I really enjoyed doing. But when I hit 39 years old, my body was like, I don't enjoy this anymore. You know, like your back is jacked, and I've got crushed discs and stuff from being a kid and football and all that stupid stuff. So I started looking around, and one of our clients happened to be, she was retired Navy, and her husband was retired Air Force, and he was retiring from Lockheed Martin. So they were like triple dippers. They were awesome people, amazing. They live in Carmel, California now. They bought a house at Pebble Beach. Oh, nice. Beautiful.
That's 17-mile drive is one of my favorite spots in the world.
Go to Ventana.
Yeah.
And then go up to the restaurant on the top of the hill, like drink beer and stare at the ocean.
It's a whole nother level there.
Oh, it's just beautiful up there. So Roger like shot a bow all the time. And I was like, "Oh, you're shooting a bow?" And he's like, yeah, I want to learn how to like deer hunt, turkey hunt. I'm like, well, I happen to do that my whole life. You know, I'm a big archery hunter. Do you want to go with me and I'll walk you through everything? And oh yeah. And, Roger's 65, 66 years old, somewhere in there. And he was like, okay, but I can't keep up with, you young guys. I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. Bow hunting's more about, moving methodical and slow. It's not, you're not running through the woods and all that kind of stupid shit. So take him hunting. I slay a deer. I break the deer down. Me and a buddy like skin it, got it, all that. It took us like 3 minutes, and he was like, holy shit, how did you do that so fast? I'm like, I don't know. I've been doing it my whole life. And then we took it back to my place, and we butchered it up. And he was like, where did you learn how to butcher? And I'm like, well, I used to watch my dad and my brother butcher when I was a kid, and they're freaking horrible at it. And I was always like interested in the muscle structures, as my dad would just cut a piece of meat off, and then they cut into steaks and wrap it. My job was to keep the knives sharp for them. And then as I got older, I started doing my own stuff. Kind of developed my own style, basically, just by watching and reading and like, I'm just really good hands-on kind of thing. So I was telling them about it, and they were like, do you know how to cook? And I'm like, yeah, I know how to cook. And, you know, this, that, and the other. They're like, okay. So, and they were like, Della was this huge cook. She loved to cook. So next thing you know, we're at their house all the time. They only live like a mile from us. We're at their house cooking and, you know, having a good time. And I kind of mentioned, like, I wonder if I just get into this. Like, I'm really good at it. And Della's like, you're really good at like butchering and cooking and stuff like that. You should consider it. So we're literally on our phones and our iPads in their back porch, Googling butcher schools and culinary schools. And my wife was in college at the time, and I'm looking at like Johnson & Wales, $50,000. You know,
Really?
Oh yeah, just this ridiculous amounts of money
To become a butcher?
No, to become a chef, to go to, because there's no butcher schools that I could find.
Really?
Unless I want to move to Europe, you know, and go through like a German thing and all that. Well, you know, there's $100K right there just to move to Germany.
No, thanks.
No, I'm not. Whatever, I'll figure it out. So one thing led to another. Cook Street Culinary School of Arts or whatever in downtown Denver popped up, and they offered a thing called the Rocky Mountain Institute of Meat. It's like a 6-week butcher school thing. So I looked into that, and I was like, well, maybe I'll do both, because the culinary school was like thousands of dollars cheaper. You know, and it was like way condensed. I think that was like a 16 or 18 week program, and they teach you like the basics of cooking and sauces and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm interested in that, but I'm really interested in this. So I reached out to them, and they're like, well, come on up and do a tour. So I went. I brought my father-in-law and a couple buddies, because we were just going to go drink in Denver anyway. And they were holding a steak and whiskey class at the culinary school. So we did that. Well, before that, we did the tour and all that.
Steak and whiskey, man. That's my kind of class.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. And so I did all that, and I reached back out, and I'm like, I want to take the butcher portion of it. So they talked to the guy who ran the butcher port, Mark. His name's Mark Denitas. And Mark's like, yeah, you know, have him sign up, pay the fee, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It was like $1,800. And, you know, my wife's a hell
of a lot cheaper than 50, right?
Yeah, my wife's already like $70,000 deep into her freaking college debt.
Student loans.
Like, I don't want to get another student loan, you know. $1,800. Even I think Roger was like, I'll pay that. You know?
Yeah.
And literally, my wife and I were living on like a combined income of $36,000 at the time.
Oh shit.
You know,
so that $1,800 is a big deal.
Yeah, we were living in a condo, not like 600 square foot condo, you know. Wow. But we were happy. I don't give a shit, you know? So I sign up, I take the class. About halfway through the class, Mark's like, hey, where did you learn how to butcher? And I'm like, I just, you know, butchering wild game my whole life. It's just something I'm really good at and quick at. And he goes, yeah, you're really good. And as the class progressed, I was like, hey, how do I get into this industry without like spending hundreds of thousands of dollars? And he goes, I'll tell you what, when we're done with this class, we'll discuss, you know, we'll see how you do in your final and all that kind of stuff. And if you're interested, I'll bring you in as a stage. So I do like weekend classes, teach people how to make
So he offered you a teaching job before the class was even over.
Yeah, like let me see how this goes, and then you could come with me.
Yeah.
So he taught like how to make fresh sausage. You know, he big name in Denver, like huge name. His wife was like on 80 plates around the world. I don't know, some TV show on Bravo. He knew Hosea Rosenberg from Top Chef. Like he knew everybody, and everybody knew him. So I kind of was like, in my head, I'm like, I'm going to latch on to this freaking dude, and this is going to work out, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to work. So basically, I worked my landscape job 5 days a week. Friday nights, I would haul ass up to Denver, or early Saturday morning, and go work for him for free. Like I was his bitch.
That's part of the thing, I think, so that people don't get sometimes. Like they just want the fame, they want the money right away, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's all about chasing the fame either, or in whatever you want to do, but offering to do something for free is huge.
Yeah. Like I got no game in this game.
Right.
Right? I'm a nobody. And the only way to become somebody or get your name out there is literally to do something like this. Yep. And in the culinary world, like the chef world, dudes will go stage at like the highest restaurant.
What does stage mean? Because
It's
I'm
just,
not.
it's just basically like an internship. Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, no worries.
Who the fuck is calling me? Oh, it's my sponsor. It's one of my.
You
sponsors.
need to take the call.
No,
I'm gonna grab a bottle of water.
No, Barry will live.
You want a bottle of water?
Oh, I got my hydro water here.
All right, cool. I'm gonna grab a couple
I like
so,
cram it
just in case.
hydro stuff in. So, I did this for like a year. Gave up my weekends. Other around hunting season, I go hunt and all that. But basically, I gave up a
Still
year.
a bow hunter?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You are a bow hunter.
Yeah,
Kind of hard to change, right?
Yeah, I'll go rifle hunt every once in a while. But even when I rifle hunt, I use like my 30-30 iron sights or my Arasaka 99.
There you
World
go.
War II gun with iron sights.
Yeah.
Like I want to make
30-06s or something.
Yeah. I want to make it as difficult as possible when I hunt. But so I did all that, and then I got introduced to Hosea, and Hosea was doing some stuff. So I did some stuff for him for a little while. By then, my name was already building, and we were looking at putting a deli butcher shop in downtown Denver by what is it, Pepsi, the Pepsi Center? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was somewhere down there.
We were just talking about that before you came up, dude. I'll help you go in on this place down here.
You're like, let's do it.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah.
We need
Dude,
one so bad.
That would be huge.
You crush it.
I still dibble dabble in the rock and roll industry a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and I spend a lot of time in Lidditz, Pennsylvania. And there's this pristine butcher shop there that's called the Rooster.
Okay.
If you're ever there, you got to go check it out. It's all white walls, everything's white,
Beautiful.
but you can go in there and order like a burger, and they'll cook it for you, or you can go in and buy a full Santa Maria roast that's pre-seasoned and stuff. It's awesome, man. It's good spot, and I've always thought you could just kill it with a place like that somewhere around here. You know? Especially, and then we have access to all this wild game and stuff. You could probably process some game for. I'd rather take mine to somebody like that than.
You can make so much money doing
I bet.
It's hard work, but processing game. I mean, those guys work, from August till about the end of this month, and then they're done.
Right.
They don't need to do anything else. I think some of them do. They'll do like custom cuts for people and stuff like that. That was something I looked at, and I was like, nah, I don't want to get involved in that. I want to do some other things. So yeah,
Plus, what people bring you, man.
Yeah.
Like I've been in line because I drop mine off. A lot of times during archery season, it's so warm, right?
Yeah.
And I like to let it cure for a little bit. We're going to get into all this, but man, some of the stuff that I've seen people drop off, I'm just like, I don't know if I'd eat that.
There's some guys that I haven't done it in a few years. They would hire me to come out to a hunting ranch and pick their animals up, and then I go butcher them and then drop them off at their house. Like, these guys paid me a shit ton of money to do this. The last time I did it, though, like, these poor little antelope had like 4 and 5 shots from like 270, 300 Win Mag in them, and
you don't get that much meat off
give
an
them
antelope.
I give them like 10 pounds back, and they're like, "Where's all my meat?" And I'm like, "You blew the shit out of that animal, bro.
Wow.
Like, there's nothing left." Like, one guy blew both the back legs off, hit it in the spine in the back. And I'm like,
God, that upsets me so bad.
It pisses me off.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast a little bit, is to help educate people on stuff like that, how to be ethical, how to treat public lands, that sort of stuff. But that is the main reason why I am a bow hunter, is because of the ethics behind it. I feel like it's like, a lot of times, I've said this before, a couple, they didn't even know an arrow hit them sometimes, or if they do, they go 30 yards. I mean, you have to, I put in the time. I try to shoot every day if I can, but
I don't, what's crazy is I don't shoot a lot, and I'll shoot a little bit before the season. And I've been doing it for so long. Like, I got friends, but my other thing is
compound, or
and I have a recurve and stuff. But my thing is I don't shoot past like 30, 40 yards.
There you go. You got to set a limit on that too.
You see guys are like, I can hit shit at 100 yards. I'm like, how many variables happen at 100 yards?
Yeah.
Even in an open field with nothing there, like one wind shift.
My
and you just
favorite
gut
line
shot that
is
poor bastard.
My favorite line is from Tom Klum. Because we get guys in here all the time that want to tell me about their 60, 75 yard shot. And he's all, I don't want to hear about that.
No.
I want to hear about the guy that spot and stalked and got a shot at 5 to 10 yards.
Well, yeah, that's
I
like,
want to hear that story.
like we took when we took Roger out, I spot and stalk turkeys. It just makes me a better bow hunter, right?
Yeah,
and
totally.
he was like, well, I watch YouTube videos and these guys, you set up decoys, blah 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 blah. I'm like, that's cool. Like, I'll bring a decoy with me and I'll set it up and I'll do some calls, and then I'll figure out where they are and then I go after them. Yeah. And he was like, oh, no kidding. And sure enough, he couldn't believe it worked. And then I took another buddy out, and we were elk hunting technically, but fall, either sex tag for turkey. We see this McLaren, right? McLaren turkeys. Mm-hmm. That's the one I always forget. They're like cruising across this field and they're heading into this like treed area, experimental forest outside of Woodland Park. I'm like, Colby, let me out. I'm going to get in front of these fuckers. I'm going to get one. He's like, there's no way, dude. They're going to see
for
you
people
coming.
that don't know, like that's might be the next hardest thing to hunt to an elk. Is hunting a turkey.
Yeah.
And a McLaren is the
group,
the flock or the group or the herd or whatever you want to call it, but they call it a McLaren.
McLaren,
right?
yeah, it's whatever.
What the hell? Yeah.
So, and they are, and the funny thing is if you find turkeys, there's elk. If you find elk, there's turkey. They have the same habits. They have the same eating habits. They have the only difference is one sleeps in the tree, one sleeps on the ground.
Right.
They do the same thing. And Cole, he's like, there's no way in hell you're gonna get to it. And I was like, just watch, dude. So I got in the trees and I was literally like, what was the old cartoon character that used to chase Bugs Bunny? Elmer Fudd.
Elmer Fudd, yeah.
I'm like with my bow from tree to tree, like moving from tree to tree. And I saw him and I was only like 20 yards from the edge of the tree line where the field started. And I let them go past me and I snuck around and I'm like, hey, buddy. And his head popped up, bling, got a freaking shot him at like 15 yards, done. Awesome. Colby was like, I wish I had a camera. That was the coolest shit I've ever seen. But, yeah, so, I showed Roger all this stuff and, went to school and I hooked up. Well, Mark was like, hey, I don't really have the means to do this anymore. I have to go back to corporate world. Would you like to buy the company from me?
Oh, really?
I was like, okay. And around that time, I get an email after, we kind of transferred everything. Mark was still a little bit involved. He was just kind of helping me through some stuff. And that was when the military reached out to us, 10th Special Forces Group down at Fort Carson. Hey, we're looking for this, this, and this. And so I'm like, why the hell is 10th Group reaching out to me? Like, right. I know like 2 dudes in the Army, whatever. So
how do you think they got your name and number? And let's dive into what you do for them now.
So I think they got my name through Mark's company, Rocky Mountain Institute of Meat, which I own now, which I bought back in 2014, 2015. I think they just Googled and finally the guy, the soldier I dealt with, Myron, he's like, we've been looking for like a year or so. We just couldn't find somebody that could teach us or develop what we need. So basically what they needed is they needed the ability to go on the local economy and either do one or two things: identify, clean meat that they could buy from somebody off the local economy, or go to a farmer and then purchase an animal from them. And how do we do this in the most humane and ethical way? Take care of the animal, or do we let the farmer do it? That kind of stuff. So I'm like, can you give me a couple weeks? I need to think of, because now you're rolling into the realm of my realm of hunting in my new realm of like professional butchery, right? Right. So a couple weeks, I typed some stuff up. I'm a horrible writer. I'm like dyslexic as hell. So it looked like a 3-year-old fucking. And we will cut on, like it was just horrible. My wife's. So did they want an actual field book or a field manual? They wanted me to develop a manual. They wanted me to develop a course for them, and they wanted me to teach the course, right? Yeah. So over like 2 weeks, I shot them this, and then they're like, hey, we need to tweak this. Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? I'm like, okay, cool. And then, so it went like, it was like 3 or 4 months back and forth. And then they're like, hey, we want to bring you to Fort Carson. We want to bring you to the 10th Group compound, blah, 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 blah. Here I am like, oh my God, I'm going to 10th Group. I see Green Berets and blah, Yeah. I'm like geeking out now. I'm like, this is fucking cool. So I go to the compound, I go in Fort Carson. They get me on, we go to the compound and all that kind of stuff. Their area, it's not really a compound. It's just their own area. It's pretty cool. And we kind of go over everything, and then we schedule a class for that August. Well, I'm like, shit, I got to find a farm. I got to find animals. So now I'm like resourcing everything. Yeah. And by then my name was, I'd already built a name in Colorado Springs and Denver. So it wasn't like super difficult because people knew who I was. So I reached out to Alex.
Were you
Seidel.
able to drop the card too? Like, hey, I'm helping,
Oh yeah.
Group or whatever.
Originally it was kind of like, it was kind of hush hush for years.
Sure.
Like, because, everybody's worried about PETA and live animals and all that. But USASOC, kind of the overall domain for the Army was like, this is for food, so we'll just rewrite the policy to fit what you're doing, right? We're not doing some weird fucked up training or anything like that. This is teaching guys how to eat properly and nutritionally on their own and self-sustain and all that. That's basically what my course is.
Which is huge, right? Because they're not packing in all that stuff.
No, so I basically teach them how to eat clean protein, how to do this on their own without having to rely on outside sources.
So
right?
Awesome.
And that eventually that goes down another rabbit hole that morphed into like doing a whole like austere cooking class that I do up at Jason's. Really? Like teach them how to make bone broth, how to build fires, how to build smokers, like how to smoke meat. Like it just went down this huge rabbit hole. That was like 3 or 4 years ago. So we do a course, and they're like, "Can we do another one next week?" And I was like, "No." Like this, I had to source these animals. This was kind of a pain in the ass. You got to give me like a week or so. And they're like, "Okay, let's do it in 2 weeks." I was like, "Okay."
So are you getting fresh guys now on these every class that comes in?
Yeah, it's a new. I only teach like 8 to 10 dudes. So I went over Alex Seidel. We were using he owns Fruition and Mercantile at Union Station, Shook Chicken. He owns all those places. And he had a farm in Larkspur, kind of on county line and I-25, just east of that. I was like, "Hey, dude, is there any way we can get more animals?" And I reached out to a farmer connection, and they were like, "Yeah, absolutely, we'll hook you up," and blah, So we did another class like 2 weeks later, and then they're like, "Hey, we want another one." So we did another class 2 weeks later, and they were like, "This is the best class we have in the military right now." Like,
that's
dudes
awesome.
are beating down the door to come to this class.
Bet. Yeah, that's huge.
And then the word got out. Then, I get hit up by third group, and then I got hit up by all 3 Ranger bat. Like, it wildfire. Like, I've been doing this since 2014, but I would say in the past 3 to 4 years, it's just like gone batshit crazy. And I love every second.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, I love. Cool job. Like, I picked up the Marine Corps this year, this past year actually. So I'm training Marines now.
So how many different branches are you doing this for? Is it Army and Marines right now? Or?
So yeah, Army, Air Force, and Marines right now. Oh, wow. So it spread over. It like spilled over to it's mainly just special operations of some sort, especially like the soft community.
Yep.
And then within the Marine Corps, their thing is they did away with a few MOSs, a few job titles, and one of them I heard is the cook job title. They don't need cooks.
So what? The Navy's cooking for them or something? Or
the directive is, from my understanding, the commandant wants his Marines to be self-sufficient. So if they're out on their own and we can't logistically get them things, they need to figure this shit out. Like, they need to know how to like butcher, cook, harvest, like everything. Imparts me, and I got this random email and a phone call from a Marine, from some first lieutenant. It was a super cool dude. I was like, "How'd you get my name?" And he was like, "Oh, they're having some quarterly meeting and your name came up like 4 or 5 times."
Sweet.
I was like, "No shit." And he's like, "Oh yeah, dude, you're the talk. You are the talk of the town." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, I'm actually leaving next week.
Oh yeah.
I'm heading back to frickin' Virginia to go train with some Marines, and then I come home, and then I got 82nd Airborne. I just picked them up last year, so they're coming out in February.
So this is pretty much a nonstop full-time thing for you.
Yeah, I schedule them however much or little I want to work.
Okay.
Basically, and like I get calls weekly, like, "Hey, can we do this? We're looking at this." The big thing, it's the government.
Right.
So you submit the quote to whoever, and then they got to take it up the chain, and then they got to.
But it's got to be cool that you're or you got to feel good about playing a part and maybe these guys surviving or not in a bad situation. And
here's what's weird. So one of the guys pointed out to me, and I'm a really humble dude. I've had this pointed out. Like, one point was made to me, like, for who you are and what you've done, you are the most humblest motherfucker I've ever met. Like, why aren't you on TV? Why aren't you, like, crushing the meat eater dude?
right.
Like, you're like, we don't get it. And I'm like, because it's not about me. I was asked to do something and I produced it, and here it is.
Right.
You know, it's my job. I love my job. I developed it, you know. And then the other thing was like you were just talking about, like, how do you feel about changing the way the military eats on deployment? And I was like, what do you mean? And it was a Green Beret. And he goes, no, let this set into your head. You single-handedly, based on an email and a conversation, changed the way we eat when we're on deployments on a healthier scale.
Yeah, it's got to feel good.
And I'm like, I got like goosebumps. I was
Yeah.
like, holy shit, I never thought of that ever. I never thought it in those terms. And I told my wife that, and she was like, yeah, it's pretty fucking cool what you do.
I think it's
She
awesome,
goes,
man.
but the
that's
thing
why we
is-
wanted to have you in here. So.
And she's like, but you're so like down here that you don't see it. Like, I've been around, like, I've met Gordon Ramsay, you know.
Did he yell at you?
No, he was cool as shit. They were shooting some TV show. And then, like, I met and got to cook with Graham Elliott from the original Master Chef judge.
Nice.
Right? Super cool dude. We stay in contact still. Like, I've had all these crazy opportunities. And I try and bring the Army guys with me, or the Air Force or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, Graham was in Pebble Beach where Roger and Della live. And it was Pebble Beach Food and Wine. Well, I met one of his best friends, Rick Tremano, down in Louisiana at another food event. And Rick is like a huge chef that nobody knows, but amazing person. And he was like, come down to Pebble Beach Food and Wine with us. You know, bring your wife. And so I hit up Myron, the guy who initiated. I'm like, hey, you want to go to Pebble Beach with me? You know, we'll stay at the War College, at the hotel there, and all that kind of stuff. And Myron's like, really? I'm like, yeah, let's go. He's like, okay, let's go. So, you know, I'm taking an Army dude with me, and we're going to like one of the biggest food events in the nation.
That's
like,
great.
You know, millions and millions of dollars, and celebrity chefs, and like all. And, you know, Myron is just a really cool, mellow dude too. You know, he got to meet Graham and Rick and Fabio Viviani, another TV dude. And those are things that make me feel good, bringing those opportunities to them.
Yeah, because those guys don't get opportunities.
They don't get
like
those
that,
opportunities.
so,
You know, you do like Bacon and Beer Fest. So I'm like, hey, you guys want to do Bacon and Beer Fest with me? They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, we don't get paid anything. They'll give us a stipend for some food or whatever, and we'll go from there. And they're like, let's do that. So we were doing Bacon and Beer, Whiskey and Bacon, like all these different festivals.
Awesome.
With the 10th group guys down there. With their cooks, and it's just fun, you know. Of course, COVID came and all that shit,
Right?
And all that.
Yeah,
but
hopefully we're getting that shit back. But this
Yeah.
Omicron thing's
spreading like
fucking
wildfire.
up. Yeah,
like I know probably a dozen people that have it right now.
yeah. There's a shitload.
And I'm
of
like,
them.
fucking stay away.
But it's weird.
Shit.
All the people that have it, it's like hardly any symptoms at all that I've talked to personally.
So a friend of mine, he had the severe headache, a temp, body aches for like a day.
Really
Gone. He goes, I
Yeah.
woke up in the morning, he was gone.
super mild.
Yeah. I was like, that's cool, because that's
Yeah.
not what I experienced.
Hopefully it's killing itself out is what I'm hoping. Each
Yeah.
strain's going to get weaker and weaker, but
Yeah.
who fucking knows?
Yeah.
But so when you take these special forces guys into your class, what is kind of the process? I mean, are you teaching them spot and stock from the get-go,
No, so we're
or
not doing-
healthy selection? Or?
Yeah, we're not doing any kind of hunting or anything.
Okay.
I'm basically teaching them, like, here's a cow. Here's what you're going to do when you negotiate your price or whatever with the farmer. Here's a pre-inspection. Here's the things to look for to make sure it's a healthy animal, right? So we'll go through a whole live animal inspection. Sure. And then here's how we're ethically and humanely gonna put this cow down, because I'm a huge animal rights activist, and people are blown away that I'm a hunter, and I love I got 5 little rescue dogs at home.
Yeah.
And they all got some fucked up issue, you know, but that's just who I am.
I got a couple too.
My wife and I, you know,
That's Jeremy.
yeah. Mine are all the little old tiny dogs, and they're all, you know, one's completely fucking blind Teddy. Yeah. But so I'm like, we're going to do this in the most humane, ethical manner that we can. Like, if the animal's stressed out, we go do something else, wait for the animal to relax, and then we come back. So that's like the biggest thing with me and with them, was like, we don't want to cause, you know, undue stress on an animal that doesn't need to be caused.
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, that's another reason why I bow hunt, is that the shock that goes into it, or that adrenaline. I don't know if this is true or not, so I can't wait to ask you this, but that rush of adrenaline puts a different flavor into the meat, or doesn't it, that it can taint the meat a little bit, or make it taste more gamey?
We could go down a shitstorm rabbit hole on that.
Let's do it. We got time if you got time.
So yeah, I got plenty of time. So here's my opinion on it. From a perspective of the stress of the animal, in my opinion, it might change the taste of the meat a little bit, but it's going to change more of the texture of the meat than anything, because you're literally, you know, they're like boom and they freak out. You know, you wound
First
them or whatever.
First thing you do is flex, right? Yeah.
Everything fucking
clenches
up.
Grabbing that steering wheel before
exactly. So on that level, yes. On the taste level, maybe a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure there's going to be people out there like fucking hammering me now. Bullshit, I hate the here's the problem. Then don't fucking put an animal under stress, and you won't have that problem.
Yeah.
Right? Take a clean shot, an ethical shot, and the animal should drop. Like, done.
Yep.
You know, the last deer I shot with my bow, I think it made it 20 yards.
They don't go far.
Put it right in the heart. Like, I had an X right in the middle of its heart.
Yep.
You know, it didn't know, like you said, yours.
I mean, even if you get a double long shot, 50, 60 yards,
it's quick.
Then, you know, it's not
quick.
Yeah.
And they don't know what's going on.
Right.
They just feel like, shit, that hurt. Like they got stung or hit by something, so they're just running to get away.
Yeah, like a couple of the elk I've seen, like one of them just was grazing, got hit, looked up real quick, like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
Went back to grazing and then fell over.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's what we do when we're doing our training is, hey, we're not going to stress the animal out. We're gonna knock it in the head and it's done. We use a captive bolt stunner, which is industry standard. So, you know, we're not meleeing with freaking M4s and shit, you know.
Right. It's not funny, but you could picture that,
but
right?
You could
the Napoleon Dynamite.
Exactly.
Hey, kids.
Yeah, you know, that's so we do the post pre, we put the animal down, we bleed it obviously. And then we do the skinning. Like I teach them the quickest way to skin an animal, and then we harvest the organs and we inspect the organs. You know, we look at the eyes, then we look at the heart, liver, lungs, kidneys, intestines. You know, you're just looking for parasites, you're abnormally, you know, stuff. Animals get like different shit depending upon the animal. Like goats eat anything, so they'll have like abscesses in their throat or, you know, down here or something, you know, they eat certain things that causes weird shit. Those are just things that I learned.
Are those pretty blatantly obvious?
Yeah.
When you come across them?
Yeah. You can't, it's pretty hard not to miss it. Sure. And those are, you know, and some things are fine. Like, okay, it's got an abscess in it. It's not messing with the meat or anything.
Sure.
But when you're looking at the filtration system of an animal, I'm worried about the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, and the heart. Not that the heart's a filtrator, right, but it's the one who pumps everything.
There's blood circulating through all those muscles that are regulated by those.
So those
things,
are the things that we look for, like is there worms in the liver? You know, is the kidney all like got hard spots, all fucked up? You know, I had a sheep that had kidney stones. Okay, it's got kidney stones. Right. It's not gonna mess with the meat. That has nothing to do with the meat, right? I think in my time of doing this, we've rejected 3 animals.
Really?
Yep. One was with Jason.
Okay.
And it wasn't, I don't even think it was a military class. We were doing one of his classes. And that poor sheep, and I knew something was up with it because its ears were kind of down, and you could just tell. One, it was old as hell. Like, I think this dude just wanted to unload his old ass sheep, which is fine because, we fed her, we put her down, like super scratching her ears and stuff like that. That's the other thing. Guys are looking at me and I'm like, hey buddy, scratching behind the ears, rubbing the nose, getting the animal calm, and then it's done. Like, most of the time they're like, oh, they don't even know what happened. But yeah, we've only rejected like 3 animals. And Jason's, there was abscess like in the liver and the kidneys and the stomach. Like, there was an abscess on its stomach that was like that.
So nasty.
It was so gross.
Yeah.
And we cut it open. It was like avocado green goo coming out of it. Yeah. I'm like, taste that. And Jason's like, screw you, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we do that part. And then I teach him, we hang the animal, let it set overnight, let rigor set in, get out. Like this whole, I age my deer for fucking 10 days or 12 days. I'm like, you don't understand the aging process because you have to have intermuscular fat to age meat properly.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Can we dive into that a little bit too? Like,
yeah,
since you're sitting here.
Yeah,
like,
no worries.
What's your take on wild game? So deer, elk.
Overnight.
Just nothing more.
Let the blood freaking drain out of it. Maybe 2. I mean, if you got to refrigerate like a cooler or whatever, you could go 2 or 3 nights. But there's no sense
because you're basically wasting meat, right? Because
you're drying it out.
Yeah.
You're turning it into jerky or hard spots.
Right.
I had a guy, and no shit, calls me, hey man, I got this elk, and I had time off. Will you come teach me? I'll pay you whatever to come butcher this elk with me. I want to learn. I'm like, okay, when did you harvest it? Like a couple days ago? He goes, no, this is like from last season.
What?
It was like 8 months hanging in
a cooler.
Yeah. And I'm like, no. And he goes, what do you mean no? And I'm like, the animal's totally worthless. Yeah. And I'm like, why would you let it hang for 6 or 8 months or whatever? He goes, oh, I was dry aging it, and then I left, and I had to come back, and it was still there. There was no fungus or anything growing on it. I'm like, there wasn't any fungus growing on it.
Another thing that pisses me off.
There's no fungus growing on it because there's no fat on the thing. The meat will rot if you have gut juice and stuff like that. In a refrigerated situation, you basically dried that thing out in the first 3 weeks. He goes, yeah, I was kind of wondering because the loins were the back straps were really tiny. And I go do me a favor. Go cut a 3-inch section of that back strap out. And then tell me how much viable meat is left on that. He's like, all right, I'll call you back in like 20 minutes. I'm like, okay. Calls me back. He's like, I fucked up really bad, didn't I? I was like, how much meat was there?
You should have called me last year.
He goes, I go, how much meat was on there? He goes, to be honest with you, Jason, the whole thing was just dried out. Like there was nothing there. It was just a hard.
It's crazy how fast it'll dry out.
I mean, and imagine sitting there for 6-8 months.
My goodness.
Like
just in the time of getting the skin off of it and stuff, you start to get like a little bit of a hard crust on it.
Which which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
The cool thing about that is you can cut that crust off, put all that leftover. I'm like giving away my industry secrets. I'm sure there's somebody on a TV show that's going to take my shit.
Don't worry, dude. We share this place with a lawyer now, so we can sue him. Yeah. That's why it says attorney on the door.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So the thing is, sorry, I got really bad brain fog from the vid. Yeah. So when you're dealing with meat, the dry aging process, for one, you need fat. So you're trying to dry, like, even like you look at, what is it, like whitetail deer, they got a shit ton of fat cap,
right?
But they don't have intermuscular fat.
Yeah, not like marbling, right?
No, there's no marbling. There's no intermuscular fat. So you need that for it to dry age properly. Okay. You need that fat. You need it to grow funk. Uh-huh. In game, it's just not. It's not a thing, right? Okay. And people don't know that at all.
Well, we do now.
So with those pieces that do dry out that you don't want to use, throw them in with celery, onions, garlic, carrots, and make yourself a beautiful stock. Like, I literally can butcher your elk and hand you, minus your gut pile, obviously, in your skin, but meat-wise, hand you probably 6 to 8 ounces of unedible. That's me butchering.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen other butchers where they're like, oh, you know, that was a 300-pound carcass and you got like 120 pounds of meat. I'm like, you got screwed, bro. And they're like, well, how much would you do?
All the time, man. You go to those big, where the trucks are lined up coming in every day, and you have to make an appointment.
Yeah, and
they're great. I mean, I take my deer there occasionally, you know. Yeah. But if I have time and it's cold enough, I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah, and I took one. I took.
I'm not good at it, but well, yeah,
we can change that.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can. Yeah, I'd love to come down and take some classes from you or something. But it's crazy, you know. They give you the hanging weight, and then what you're actually going to get processed, and some of that they're mixing with, like, if you're getting burger. Yeah, they'll ask you how much fat you want, so they're putting beef or pork back into it or whatever to have. Some
and you're
of
paying
fat.
For that weight. Yeah, you know, obviously,
right?
You know, and the other thing is kind of, I don't know that's an industry standard. I'm not trying to pigeonhole any processors, but some processors, they'll take all the stew or whatever meat, throw it into one big bin that'll crap out, you know, 100 pounds a minute of grind. You could be getting his meat, my meat, somebody else's meat. You know, I've heard of those horror stories.
Yep.
So you got to be really selective about who you take stuff to. And people are like, well, it doesn't really matter. And da-da. But it does matter.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you're mixing, I don't know, whitetail with muley and antelope. That's going to
even if it's all mule deer, they're harvested differently, right?
Exactly.
Maybe one animal had shock value.
Exactly.
Maybe mine is super clean. Maybe one of them was gut shot. Like, who knows?
And the grinding process, the one that got gut shot could be pushing bacteria through the auger and the dye blades and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And now that's in your meat.
Right.
You know? I mean, the chances are low.
That's one of the main reasons I hunt, is because I want to know where my meat came from and the cleanliness of it and all that stuff.
That's why it's important to learn how to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like with the military. I told them, if you guys came to me and said, you know what, you trained everybody we needed trained, you did a great job, we're not going to do business with you anymore, I'd be like, fucking A, I did my job. I just taught a bunch of people a shit ton of information that they're going to take to their back to their community and hopefully change other people's minds. Yeah. That's more about what I'm about. Like, the money's okay, the hanging out with fucking Green Berets and shit, making friends, like, those guys are fun and all that. But at the end of the day, like, if in the Marines, they're a prime example. That is their end goal, is to train the trainers in the next 3 years. And then I go away and I'm like, I have no problem with that. That's great. I just taught you guys a bunch of stuff. So we do that, and then we were talking about the rabbit hole of the cooking. Yep. So I'm always paying attention to what the Army struggles are. And their struggle is nutrition. Like, how we view nutrition and how the military views nutrition are two different things. And then you get
MREs suck.
Horrible.
Even if you're getting the nice, like, what is it, the Mountain House ones or whatever, dude, they all suck.
They're still like, they're not.
No disrespect, Mountain House, but
they're just not nutritionally. I mean, they got nutrition in them, but they're just not something you can sustain on for a long period of time. Right. And part of the problem was the guys when they were deployed, they were eating on local economy. They were getting sick, or the bad guy knew that they were going to be doing this, so they were trying to poison food and make dudes sick. Like, this whole mess. Like, I've been part of, like, all kinds of crazy conversations of why this was needed and why it continues to be needed. But yeah, it's more about nutrition and combat sustainability is kind of what I refer to it as.
Getting into, like, when you're going into a class, and I've just seen some of your posts and stuff like that, and you brought in this awesome fucking hog splitter, man. This thing is badass. Do you mind if I hold it up for the camera?
No, you're good.
Go watch the video. We should take some photos with this. Is that in the shot, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Okay. But we'll take some photos with this too and post it on the gram before the podcast comes out so everybody can see this. But your tools, your rig, all that sort of stuff going into what are you taking there with you? Like, what is your rig set up? That FJ with the trailer and it's a turtleback trailer or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So that kind of came into the cooking aspect of everything. I kind of milled around and watched, and I was like, hey guys, what if I taught you how to build fires and make a smokehouse out in the middle of nowhere, because you could smoke your own meat for, longevity of protein, that type of stuff. And they're like, oh my God, yeah, that'd be fucking awesome if you could like do something like that for us. Yeah. So I spent a few months like, I could do this, I could do that, I'm picking other people's brains and, ideas and stuff like that. And then I was looking at their cooking equipment, and I'm like, God, that thing's big. It's like a fucking house you're towing around, bro. Right. So I started researching trailers. Like, I bet we can do this better. Like, I could come up with something better. I love to solve problems. Mm-hmm. And I think my last 9 years has been solving military problems, like on the food level kind of thing. So I reached out to a couple, and then I reached out to Turtleback Trailers. I was like, this is what I'm doing. This is who I am. This is who I work with.
Are those guys local?
They're down in Arizona.
Oh, not too far then.
Yeah, not too far.
Hey, Jeremy, pull up. What's your Instagram handle?
Jason the Butcher.
Jason the Butcher. Oh, that was quick. And yeah, scroll through there. You should see his FJ with like it's towing a trailer. This thing is bad. It's meant for like off-road.
Yeah.
Stuff too, right? There you go.
Yeah, there's a picture of it. That was me picking it up in Arizona. There's me going, holy shit.
It's got an awning and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's got a bat wing awning, 270 degrees. That's the kitchen. That's the pantry and kitchen on the backside. It's the Expedition. After I talked to those guys, they were like, this totally makes sense. Let's put something together. Nate introduced me to Barry, one of the owners, one of the guys who runs it. Super cool dude, like super cool.
Yeah.
They're all cool there.
Awesome.
I get down there, my FJ, I didn't have the trailer lights hooked up or anything because I'm just not wire savvy. So one of their wiring guys came over and he was like, yeah, we can knock this out real quick. It took us like 4 hours to find a wiring harness in Arizona for it.
Oh,
because
really?
it was during COVID.
Oh, shit.
And nobody had anything.
So this is recent then, huh?
I picked that up in August of 2019.
Yeah. Makes me want one.
So you're using this for training?
Yeah. So basically what I thought, my thought process was, if a GB team, a Green Beret team's out, and there's only like, maybe 20, 25 dudes, 30 dudes. I mean, we could go as high as 50. Why are they going to drag that giant fucking kitchen thing they have? Or they just don't have the right equipment, period, on whatever little compound that they're at where they're deployed. And so this was like the perfect fit because the suspension is freaking phenomenal on it. You can take it anywhere. It's got a 360-degree max coupler hitch system. So it's on its own program. Your truck's on your own program. So when the trailer it won't try and pull the truck over. The truck won't try and pull. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And then 42 gallons of fresh water.
Propane, right? So you don't have a bunch of smoke from a fire
no,
giving off a position
not at all.
Or anything
no.
like that. Yeah.
So you got 6-gallon hot water heater. You got all the power you need. It trickle charges when you're driving down the road, so your power is always getting constantly recharged. So I was like, if I can get my hands on one of those, I think I can get them in front of the military. And I have. Like, 5th Group was looking at them. They just had a change of command and stuff, so I think it's still on their radar. It's just, fiscal years change and all that kind of stuff. The Marine Corps, I brought it out to the Marine Corps. It's still sitting in Virginia. I got to pick it up. Oh, really? I just got off the phone with the chief this morning, and she was like, yeah, the commander wanted to take the trailer. He went because he loved it. Like, as soon as I pulled out, he's like, oh my God, I love this thing. I've been looking at them, but fuck, they're expensive. So he was trying to steal my trailer, evidently.
What does one of those things cost, like retail? Is it
they're
like 30, 40?
Yeah, it's like around the 30 range.
That's not horrible for what it is.
Like the base, I want to say, is 25, 27, and then as you add shit, it gets more and more expensive. I didn't need the tent on top of it. and they hooked me up. So they're like, that's their trailer, but it's my trailer. Like they sponsored me. Super, like I said, they're super cool people. And Barry he's the one who just called. And he's probably like, what the fuck are you doing? You know,
doing a podcast,
doing
man.
a podcast,
giving you a shout out.
Yeah, exactly. But so I tow it around.
That's awesome.
You know, COVID hit. Originally, I'd fly everywhere, and I was flying like all my knives and just a pain in my ass to fly. To go do
I
training.
bet. Yeah.
You know, because every time they would rip my shit apart because they're like, "What's this?" I'm like, "It's a captive bolt stunner." They're like, "What's that?"
You didn't try to fly with this, did you?
Not yet.
Okay.
Well, I have to check. I check everything. Right. So I pull up. I set the awning up. Pull the kitchen out. I think Barry's actually working on
running hot water. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Too.
So Barry's working on a system where we can hang animals off of it.
Oh, really?
I bought like a cheap like trailer hitch one. That big pig you see right there, that pig broke it. Like bent the shit out of it. Right. So that's at a friend of mine's house. He raised 2 pigs. That pig is 374 pounds.
Damn.
The gambrel was supposed to hold like 600, and it just freaking.
What is it, like a engine lift or something, or is it a
No, it's
a gantry?
So it goes up and it comes out, and it's got and then you put your gambrel. You can see where it's hanging, and then you just crank it. Right, it's just a hand crank.
Yeah.
And you pull the animal up. You can plug them in the back of your truck, so when you're out in the field, you can hang your deer or elk from it.
I've never seen those. I've always had to find a tree.
Yeah,
Luckily,
yeah.
We live in the Rocky Mountains, but when you're above tree line, you're doing it on the ground.
Yeah.
Talk about a sore back, and
that's what I teach the guys is how to do everything on the ground. This is how you skin it on the ground. You got it like everything on the ground. I take the trailer with me, and we use it. I store my equipment. It's nice because I can bring all my shit with me in one package instead of, I can't bring that because I'm not going to fly with it. And I don't, and then I'm calling dudes like, hey, can you source this for me? Right. It's not their job. Like, it's my job to bring everything. So this was the solution.
That's awesome.
And it's a great solution. The Marines, I believe, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe they just purchased one for research and development. Cool. So yeah.
So what's in your kit? I mean, is bone saws? Is it? I'm sure.
Dude, I'm a geek with that kind of outdoor shit. Like my wife is like, you just made Amazon like millions of dollars. I'm like, whatever. No, like stuff like this, knives, saws, packaging equipment, cooking equipment, like all my cast irons, everything. So if you can imagine being able to literally kill an animal and then process it in one spot, store it because it has a refrigerator and a freezer in it, 85 quart.
Damn.
Process it, put meat in the fridge, put meat in the freezer, and then cook a bunch of meat off the back of it.
That's awesome.
All like right there. That's it. Not only that, it's so nimble you can take it anywhere. It's got, I believe it's the Icon suspension or something like that.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Barry's still. I don't know. I know they're always looking. Oh, there's Hazel. There's my dog. That's Hazel. Yeah. She's my emotional support dog.
That's awesome.
She's bossy.
Does she travel with you?
No. No, I got to leave her home.
So how many crazy stories you got from hanging out with these guys and just?
I know. Like, I don't really have any.
Are you on base a lot of times so that it's the best behavior, or what's the?
We do a lot. Wild? Like we do the harvesting portion on a farm off base. It's just easier that way. Sure. I built relationships with ranchers all over the country at this point, so I can pretty much go anywhere. And like Virginia, my buddy Matt Deaton, he's a pretty known chef in DC. He found me a guy from where is he from? He's from Yemen.
Really?
He's a farmer in Virginia. From Yemen, like half his family's still in Yemen. He's dude's amazing human being. Him and his family, like I show up with like 20 Marines, and while we're training, he has his daughters and stuff in the house cooking everybody lunch.
Really?
Like it's just amazing. Awesome. I get to be around amazing people. That's why I love my life so much. Like I'm just around amazing people. I don't have any like crazy stories.
That's half the battle, I think, with just. That's what makes me miss the road and like being a roadie.
Yeah.
It's just like the characters that you were around, those sort of people, the security guys, the whatever it was, you know, like
I get to meet a lot of cool people,
yeah,
you know, and I've made a lot of good friends, like really good military friends. You know, my brother's a vet. He was in the Navy. And my one grandfather, he was an Army. My other one was a merchant Marine back in World War II. I wasn't. I wanted to go in the Marines, but by the time I was 17, I had 2 knee surgeries and I got lockjaw and all kinds of issues. They're like, dude, you're fucked up. Get out of here. But I just get to be around a lot of cool people. I don't have any crazy stories. Like some of the coolest shit I get to do is like go shoot with them or whatever. I did cold weather training with 4th Battalion
nice.
A few years back with a whole GB team, Jedburghs. They took me out shooting, you know, long guns and stuff. I mean, I never shot at 1,200 meters.
Right.
Like, I don't think I've ever shot past 250 yards in my entire life. Yeah. And these dudes got me shooting, fucking hitting steel at 1,200 or 1,000 meter, whatever it was. I was like, holy shit, it's like 25 below zero. We're in Taylor Park in
really?
January.
Yeah, that's a whole
that's a whole thing right there.
Right there, yeah.
You know. And so stuff like that, or I'll get to go ride in some of the vehicles, like just nothing really crazy. Yeah. You know, I just like being around, like
being around those guys, riding in some of their equipment, checking out their equipment's pretty badass. So
and
I've been fortunate enough. Some of the rock stuff that I've done, like USO stuff and stuff like that, and being on some bases. Like I did the 60-year anniversary of the Air Force.
Oh, nice.
We toured every base where they did air shows.
Oh,
but
cool.
we got to go on while it was still active bases, and just some of the shit we were seeing, you know, like being at Luke and having them, we're building right on the flight line and having them launch, you know, 8 or 9 F-16s.
You're like,
you can't do anything. You just stand there and watch.
Yeah, I think the probably the most exciting, besides the first round, like initially working with them and building upon like getting my name out within the military community, I hit a certain level of I don't know how to describe that. I can't really
comfortability maybe.
I can't really like talk about it, but I hit a certain level of soldier that not everybody gets to be around or see or be on their compound, or like even you fucking drive by and they're probably looking at you.
Sure.
Like, why are you driving by? When I hit that level, I was like a kid in a candy store. Like, I am at the coolest fucking place on the earth right now, and I am with the coolest motherfuckers. Yeah. You know, that for me was like, this is the shit right here. And then to take like a tour of a certain, you know, get to see certain things.
And to be able to teach them something too.
And teaching those guys, and eating lunch with, you know, I was teaching their support guys who were a bunch of bad motherfuckers too. And then, but being in the same dining facility with those dudes going, I know what you did. You know, it's like, this is fucking cool. And they're like, totally, you would never, ever, they're just cool people. Yeah, no. They're like, Jay, did you kill that fucking cow this morning? And we're like, yeah. And they're just fucking like eating a pound of meat and sitting. And I'm like, there you go, bro. Yeah. You know, eat up.
Yeah, no, my good experiences, I've had nothing but good experiences with all those guys that I've been around. They're the best people to be around, in my opinion, because there's no sugar-coated bullshit. Like, it's an honest, you're just honest people.
Yeah. They tell you how it is. Like, 100%. And I tell them, I'm like, if I'm fucking up, you need to say something. Yeah. You know, and I had a situation where I was with a group and we were working on a certain farm, and they were like, hey, dude, we can't come here anymore. This is a shit show, and it's starting to make you look bad. And I was like, okay, we're fucking done. You know, we're out. I didn't say anything to anybody. We finished our training and we left. That was it.
Right.
Like, I don't need any more. And you know, like, you told me this is starting to affect, like, we're done. Let's move on to the next place.
I think that's another life lesson too.
Yeah. The older you get, the more
you start to figure it out.
You figure out, and you think before you know, when you're younger, you're just like, you react to everything.
So we kind of touched on your history a little bit with this and why you dove into being a butcher, but were you born and raised in I mean, you grew up hunting. Are you from Colorado, or where are you from originally?
So my family's from Illinois, like Aurora, Chicago, Geneva, that area. I was born in Aurora, But when I was 3 years old, we moved out here, and I grew up in Woodland Park.
Okay.
So I'm like,
you're about as native as it gets.
Yeah, you know, I'll turn 49 next month, and I've been here since I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
So I've been here 46 years.
And then how did you make that connection that this was your passion? Was it just something that kind of fell in your lap like you were explaining, or was it, I mean, I'm sure it didn't fall into your lap. There's hard work that comes along with anything to be successful, but.
And you know, I don't know why I went from landscaping to like food. I mean, but really, if you think about it,
and a little bit later in life, right? Because this has been, how many years have you been doing this now?
I started doing this when I was about 40 years old. Because I'm almost 49. Yeah.
So like about 10 years now.
Yeah.
Man, yeah.
I'm 9-10 years.
So yeah, pretty recent change.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I'm kind of a risk taker. It drives my wife is not. My wife is very like, we stay in the box. And I'm like fucking all over the place. Right. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go do this. And she's like, oh, Jesus Christ, here we go. He's getting into something else now.
Right.
Like I've got my hands in so many things right now. And she's like, I don't know how your brain operates. And I'm like, I don't know how my brain operates either. Right. So honestly, I don't know. I just, something sparked kind of Roger. I always give Roger and Della the credit. Like they kind of like, hey man, you're really good at this. You should look at this. And I always love to cook, like always. My wife, she comes Italian family. Like she cooked all the time and stuff like that. I'm like, get the hell out of the kitchen. I love to cook, you know? And then even leveling up even further is being around dudes like Graham Elliott, Rick Tremano, you know, Hosea Rosenberg, Alex Seidel, Justin Brunson, like all the top dudes in Denver.
Bet you've had some good meals, huh?
Oh, dude, no idea.
I bet.
I've had some good, like Pebble Beach Food and Wine. They're like walking around with tins of caviar, and I'm like, oh my god, you know, that's like $750. And they're like, here's your tin of caviar. Go ahead and munch on it. Right. I'm like, holy shit, I'm eating, you know, or I'm putting caviar on top of Rick's dish, and he's like, don't fuck that up. And I'm like, oh, now I'm nervous, you know, that kind of thing. So I've always been passionate about hunting. I've always been passionate about like outdoor stuff. And I think it's just a kind of a natural transition, you know, if you really think about it. Like,
it is. Like, I think I have not nearly as skilled as you are, but there's a ton of life lessons in hunting, I think. And that's one reason why I continue to do it. And that's why I want my son to do it. Or my daughters.
Every hunt is different.
Yeah.
Every hunt. Like, in every class that I put on is different. I mean, it's the same, but I got different personalities. You know, these are young, like support, like when I'm dealing with support kids, these kids are like 18 to 22 years old, 23 years old.
Right.
They're young. They're just getting into life. See, I sound like an old man right now.
But what a life lesson, you know, taking a life of something else and then processing it and then having it set on your plate. And I guess this kind of goes into the ethics of hunting and being stewardship, that whole side of it for me. Whether you're a vegetarian or not, like knowing where your food came from or growing your own food or not just going to the store and buying it off the shelf.
Yeah.
It's a big difference, right?
Yeah. Huge difference.
Yeah.
And you know, I get those comments like, Mr. Nauert, this was like the best course I've ever had, the most informational. I really respect where my food comes from. Like I get it, you know. You got an 18-year-old that was like, you know, I grew up in Jersey in the city. I don't even know what a fucking chicken looks like.
Raised pizza.
Yeah, exactly. You know, grazing pizza out on the concrete or something. And you can see that like when we get through the butcher class and we make fresh sausage, and then we eat, or we're tasting shit constantly, or we have a meal or whatever. They'll take meat home with them. You know, they'll take the meat home with them and cook it, and they're like, "That's the best meat I've ever had in my life." And I go, "Why do you think that?" And they're like, "I don't know. It just tasted so much better." I'm like, "Because you harvested that animal by yourself. You treated that animal like an amazing human being should. You took its life, and you understood like."
There's gratitude. You got to have some gratitude.
A lot of gratitude.
Right?
A lot. And being an animal lover, there's times where there's been animals where I'm like, we're not killing that animal. Because, the farmer's like, I'm just trying to get rid of it. I'm like, no, that sheep is too small. I'm not doing it,
Right.
But for them, it's like they got to harvest it themselves, and then they got to skin the animal, then they got to butcher the animal, and then they got to cook the animal.
Yeah.
And on a mental level, those endorphin, like those happy endorphins start rolling when you realize, like, I did this process myself, And I've had guys come to me, they're like, when I retire, I'm going to find you because I want to help you, or I want you to help me because I want to be a butcher or I want to be a chef.
Sure.
And I tell these guys, I'm like,
and sharing it with other people too is one of the greatest feelings too.
Yeah.
I love pulling out like a salami or whatever, right? And just
I give away more meat than I eat.
Yeah.
Like people are like, oh, we don't have any. I'm like, come to my house. I'll give you as much meat as you can take.
Yeah.
I don't care. If it'll feed you and your family, then fucking take it.
Feel the same way, man. And there's a lot of people that have gotten into that. When it comes to the selection process, a lot of people, and I think this is one reason why hunting might have this stigma that it does, right? Mm-hmm. Or the cover of the book, right? A lot of hunters are out there because they are trophy hunters. They're after those big animals, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I've always kind of taken a different approach. It's just never been my thing to have that huge bull. Now, if a 300 class bull walks in front of me 20 yards during the middle of archery season, I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to trap it.
And I had that experience.
Yeah.
He's a 300 class bull. Like, we were hunting in one spot and it just got saturated with out of state dipshits.
Right.
I was like, we're getting the fuck out of here. So we left, and I said, we're going to go try this other. And as we're going, we see the herd that was going to where they were going, where we were, going the opposite way. And I'm like, I know where we're going to go. We're going to get ahead of them. Sure enough, we sat, had a donut, drank some coffee, heard them coming, jumped out, walked 100 yards in, cow, and this big fucking bull just, I'm like, yo! And he stopped and looked. I hit him at 50 yards with my Winchester 30-30 iron sights. My first fucking big game gun I ever got.
Really?
Yeah. And people were like, there's no way you killed that thing. He was huge. We got 327 pounds of meat off of him.
Jesus. Yeah, that's a big bull.
Yeah, they were like, that thing was huge. Like, what'd you shoot that with? I'm like, a 30-30, 150 grain. And they're like, they're no,
you're lying.
Yeah, because that one I had to take to I took him to Ted's out east to Colorado Springs because we had other hunt. Then we had deer. Like, we were busy, and Ted was like, holy shit, this thing's huge. And we had a couple outfitters behind us in line, like you're talking about. And the one outfitter, he looks in the back of the truck, and he was like, where the hell did you shoot that thing? And I was like, on top of Rampart Range.
Right.
Like 3 miles from Woodland Park. And he's like, no way. I'm like, where'd you get that one? Because, of course, they had the trophy. Yeah. The base is as big as your thigh, but then it looked like a mule deer body on this giant fucking elk.
Really?
And then mine had like a nice, beautiful, and just this massive body on it.
So that's what I was kind of diving into when it comes to selection for me. I'm looking for that young.
I want meat.
Cow, whatever's closest to me, right? Whatever's going to be the easiest shot.
Yep.
Whatever is going to be the best tasting, right?
Yeah.
And so a spike, if it's permitted in that area.
Yeah.
A cow. Stuff like that.
I just want the meat.
That's kind of what I'm after too.
I've got one animal that I had, the head done, and that was that bull. I don't.
And to you, what would be the best? What would be the best tasting meat to put on your plate at the end of the day? If you're just after it for the meat and you're not looking for that grip and grin.
Moose.
Okay. I'm thinking more like age range, but yeah. I
love age
moose
range
too. Yeah.
I won't shoot calves.
Mm-hmm.
I won't shoot mamas with a calf.
No,
I don't shoot does with babies, even though they're like, oh, that's stupid. You should, and I won't shoot babies. So I'll shoot like that a little bit older doe. Mm-hmm. And this might change your mind too. I don't always look for the youngest. I'll look for the older one. because they're on the decline. Yep. So it's almost like you're now
no,
really
I'm the
a
same
part
way
of.
too. I didn't mean to say it that way, but
Yeah.
in my experience, the best tasting stuff I've had
Yeah.
has been like that 2-3-year-old animal raghorn or something like that.
Well,
right?
and I, I do some stuff with the Division of Wildlife, and I try and explain to people, like, that's all well and good, but you should really learn how to cook the meat, because you could make an 8-year-old bull taste like,
that's a good argument.
a 3-year-old bull.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It comes back to preparation, technique, and cooking. Like, if you do it right, you'll have just
it's
as good
huge.
meat.
I mean, that's been a game changer for me, just having that pellet, Traeger grill.
Oh yeah.
Those things are fucking badass, man.
Yeah, there's so many fucking
the recipes that they have, with their app and the whole thing.
Yeah,
and like that's been a game changer for me.
Yeah, there's so much information out there now, which is also a weird thing for me, because people are like, hey, I want to learn how to do this. I'm like, fucking Google all that. Like, why are you coming to me? And I've asked people, I'm like, why are you coming to me? And they're like, well, we have Googled shit and it sucks.
Right.
And I've recommended, I think it's a Butcher Brothers or some crap on YouTube.
Okay, I don't know who they are.
Super cool.
Mm-hmm.
The two big dudes with beards, and they're phenomenal, but we like mirror.
Do you have a YouTube channel or any information out there like that?
I'm so busy with the military, I've just steered away from like civilian stuff. I do a thing with Ricky. It's called the Ricky Sportsman's program with the Division of Wildlife. So they take out they got like 15 families that sign up that have never hunted, fish, camped, or anything like that that are interested in learning how to hunt.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've had them in here a couple times and talked about that. So.
Yeah, they're clean meat. So down in the Springs, they asked me if I would come in and teach like wild game butchering and skinning and all that kind of stuff. So I do that. Like, I do that, and it's been a great program. I've met some amazing people, like families, and we've created great relationships with families. I've been a hunting mentor with one of the wildlife officers, and it's just I just love that kind of stuff. Yeah, I just love being with cool people. It goes back to hanging out with Green Berets. And
well, thanks for coming and hanging out with us.
Yeah, dude. No, this is awesome. Yeah,
this is great.
Do you have any time constraints you want to get back on the road anytime, or can I burn up some more of your time?
You can burn my time, because I don't want to drive in freaking
rush hour,
stupid traffic.
Yeah. I hear you.
Not at all.
So what is the most important tool for a butcher? Obviously, it's going to be some sort of cutting tool, right? Good sharp knife.
Your brain, your knowledge. The knowledge of the animal is going to be your most important tool, and then a good sharp knife, boning knife. 6-inch semi-flexible boning knife is like your best tool.
Semi-flexible.
Semi-flex.
Okay.
Because you want to be able to get in to those joint sockets and in between stuff.
Right.
A rigid one is really hard because stuff's not really forgiving. Whereas you get a semi-flex, it'll bend, it'll freaking pop in that joint, it'll cut the tendon. Like,
I've never really thought about that. Most of my like boning knives are rigid and stuff like that. So
yeah, it was funny.
So more like a fillet knife almost.
Almost, yeah. 6-inch. Vitronox makes beautiful ones. I love De Facto. They have a rigid one they just came out with, and they have a semi-flex and then a rigid. I like both of their knives. I like the semi-flex boning that came out wrong.
Sorry, ladies.
Sorry.
Or dudes.
Nowadays,
whatever. Who knows? Yeah.
But yeah, they have two phenomenal knives that came out too.
I've been checking out some of their stuff. Actually, I found them on your Instagram page or something. I don't know how I stumbled on it.
I'll share stuff every once in a while and post stuff.
Yeah, it looks like they got some cool stuff.
Yeah, they're really nice. The owner's really nice. Great company. Whenever I need something, like literally at the drop of a hat, like, hey man, they just fucking call me and they want to do a class in like a week and I need 12 kits. And he's like, I'll overnight them to you. Don't worry about it, Jay. Sweet. Another cool example. I got a friend who's he's retired GB, retired law enforcement. He's got a daughter that has, she's handicapped. Not bad or anything, but she loves to cook. But she has problems using I think it's her right hand, or like, I think it's right or left, whatever. And so I was talking to him. This just happened like within the last 3 weeks. I was talking to him and I was like, so what's going on like with Ava? And he's like, oh, she loves to cook and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, hey, he goes, I ordered a couple knives for her for Christmas based off of what you posted and, you know, this, that, and the other. And I was like, I'll do one better. I'm going to call Matthias. So I called the owner. I'm like, hey, here's the sitch. Can we get her something? He sent her a 15 knife block set.
Really?
For free. Like,
that's awesome.
This is hers. And then I'm like, let's level this shit up. My buddy, one of my best friends, Fernando Ruiz, he's won Chopped, beat Bobby Flay, and Guys Grocery Games. Another phenomenal human being. He was a shitbag, drug running, human trafficking piece of shit in his younger days. Went to jail. I'd love to have him come up and talk to you guys. His story is fucking amazing. He lives in Santa Fe right now. And just became this celebrity chef dude. Like, just a normal dude like you and me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, does she know who Fernando is? And he's like, yes. She's seen him on TV. I'm like, how about we do a one-on-one cooking class with Fernando and Ava? And he was like, you're fucking kidding me. I'm like, no, we'll make it happen. So he's like, I'm just going to hand you off to my wife and you guys can deal with it. So next thing we know, we got Fernando, me, and her FaceTiming, and he's giving her a cooking class.
That's epic, man.
Yeah, it was like a couple days after Christmas. She couldn't even talk hardly.
Right.
And then he sends me this message. He's like, yeah, I had to go buy a ladder and a muzzle because I couldn't get her off the frickin' ceiling, and she wouldn't shut up. Right. So I thought that was pretty cool. But it was awesome that, you know, De Facto was like, yeah, whatever you want, man. Right. You know, that's a cool story.
That's very cool.
We're glad to help.
It's unusual.
You know, it is very unusual. You know, I'm not going to name the brand knife. It's a very popular brand. I was working with them for a while, and I'm like, hey, because they were like, give us feedback. I was like, okay. We kept breaking everything. And I told them, I'm like, you got to realize you're dealing with fucking Army dudes. Right. They break everything you put in their hand just about. And so I was giving them feedback, and they just were like, yeah, we're not changing anything. You can go away.
Really?
And I was like, okay, well,
I did see on your Instagram, and we touched on this lightly, you have half-face blade, right, that was gifted to you.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think of those?
That thing is, it's scary. It's scarier sharp than this, and this thing's like a freaking razor. Yeah,
I just gave Jeremy one for Christmas, and I had to take it away from him the same night, I think. But
yeah, that was a
we might have been drinking.
Yeah. I don't know how many. I can't count how many cuts. Like, it's so funny to be like teaching these guys how to use knives, sure. And we'll be skinning something. You'll hear, shit, I cut myself. You know, so now I'm playing freaking medic. You know, now I'm the 18 Delta because this kid like ripped his finger open or something like that, and I tell him, I'm like, these fucking knives are sharp, man. You guys got to be really careful. Like, really careful.
I think that's my biggest thing getting into hunting with the kid and everything that makes me the most nervous is when you get down to that and you get going. Typically, it's in the dark, right? If you shoot something at last light, like, it's a big deal, man. You don't want to cut yourself open out there.
But, yeah, and you got to be really careful. When I went to Alaska, I was very cognizant because the guy told me a story about, I think it was one of the Division Wildlife guys was telling me, there was a story where a guy was skinning a moose and he poked himself, but a piece of moose hair went in into his finger and he didn't realize it. By morning, they had to fly him out because his arm had turned like green.
Really?
Overnight.
Damn.
So that's the kind of stuff like I've
had. From a poke?
From a puncture, like a piece of hair, moose hair got into his system.
And just whatever bacteria was on it.
Like grew like wildfire.
Wow.
So like I poked myself once. We were working on a cow and I poked myself and I was like, oh shit. And like that story just kept running in my head, you know? So dumped some alcohol on it, went home. When I got home, I took a razor and I cut it, like I filleted the poke open. So it would like not have any.
Not like a staph infection.
Yeah, like,
or anything.
Like I'm like squeezing juice. I like, come on, bleed. Please bleed again. You know, because I don't want a piece of hair in there. I don't want my arm falling off.
Right.
These are my money makers.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I didn't know this kid firsthand, but story of a kid up in Montana. One of my uncles lives up there, and it was like a family member's friend or something like that. But kid had a glass eye, and he was skinning a deer or gutting a deer or something, and pulled too hard when he got to the sternum or whatever, right? And
took
right
it in the eye. I could see that, man. I get guys that have stabbed themselves in the legs in class. Really? Like one kid filleted half his finger off. Like, they're just stupid shit. Right. Well, with your son, I mean, I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Well,
your fingers are in there a lot too, especially like in the field dressing process and all that. I've
had cuts, and I continue to pull the guts out and stuff like that. I'm like, I'll wash it off when I get done, because there's no point in washing off and putting a Band-Aid on it, because it's just going to leak through the Band-Aid. Who gives a shit? One of the things I really I think is funny is these guys are like, they'll show up wearing gloves and shoulder gloves and like.
I've never got that like
all this shit, and I'm like the glove's going to hinder you, because it's slippery when it hits blood and stuff like that. So take the fucking gloves off. Well, I don't want to get sick, and I'll gut an animal and reach over and start eating my sandwich without even like cleaning my hands, and they're like, "You're gonna die." I'm like, never been sick. Yeah. Like, it's not a thing. That was a healthy animal.
The natives, I can't remember. I think I heard this on a podcast. It was probably on Rogan or somebody, but he was talking about the natives used to take the stomach bile and squirt it on liver, and that was like a delicacy or something.
Yeah.
And then eat it. I think it was in that book, Empire of the Summer Moon. Or something.
So I met a Native American chef at a...
Is that me? Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I met a Native American chef at some food event up in Denver, and that's what he was talking about. He's like... He said, we'll cut the gallbladder open. And
that's
then
what it is.
You cure the liver with the gallbladder for a few days, and then they fry it off and eat it that way.
Really?
It was bitter.
Yeah,
it had like it had like a weird, it wasn't bad because I love liver, but it was just kind of a weird bitter taste.
So taking care of the meat, if you accidentally cut into some sort of bile material and it gets on the meat, are you trimming that off the meat? Are you... Because typically, if you're in the field, you don't have running water or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So if you got like a bottle of water, just try and wash it off. If you don't have that ability, like I tell guys, if you're hunting in the wintertime, use some snow, clean it out. Right. Or just don't fucking cut the gut in the first place. Don't gut shot it, God forbid, Right. But generally, just get as much as as much stuff off as you can, and then get it back to camp, and then deal with it from there. Right. It's not gloom and doom if you get gut juice on something. Everybody seems to think, oh, once the gut juice hits, it's done. It's not. Yeah. There's that nice lining on the inside that'll protect some of it. You might lose a little bit of meat. I mean, don't leave a pile of gut juice on the meat. Clean it off as best you can. And the other thing I try and tell people, like,
it's crazy how compartmentalized an animal is.
We're the same.
Yeah,
we're very compartmentalized. And I've told guys, I'm like, okay, so you cut the gut and it leaked over on the left quarter, like the flank and over here, right? So get that gut juiced area away from the other meat, and then go back to concentrate. Like, clean it off, obviously, right. But then go back, because now you're not like cross-contaminating constantly, stuff like that. Just little tips and tricks. Like, there's just little things that people don't think about. Sure. I can't even think about them all right now. If I had an animal laying here, like, we could go through the
process. Like, it's so hard to explain to somebody.
It is, unless you're really, physically doing it. It's really hard.
And I've done it over the phone a couple times. Like, luckily, guys have had cell service.
Oh, I've had dudes. Yeah, dudes calling me like, "Hey, Jay, I shot this deer. What the fuck do I do with it?" And so we're FaceTiming, and they're like going up and down.
Just start cutting.
It's just so hard to do it that way.
It is. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. But I'm always trying to like further my own education, and I try and stay. I'm not involved in the beef industry, but I really pay attention to what's going on in the beef industry. I really pay attention to what's going on in the wild game industry. Like,
that's kind of what I was hitting on about the ethics of it. Like, I think so many people just go to the store and they buy their beef right off the the counter, right? And I love beef. Don't get me wrong, man. There's a certain, I want to know where it's coming from, right? So I've been ordering a lot of stuff from Mountain Primal.
Oh, I know those guys. I met one of those guys,
John Moss, on the podcast.
I think that's who I met.
Yeah. Great dudes. I mean, good people, but great meat too.
Yeah.
But I won't buy my meat at a grocery store. I just don't do it, man.
I just go to Burger King and have a burger.
Yeah. You might as well at that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of good ranchers around here. It's funny, on my way down, we were just talking about this. We were talking about the beef industry in general, because I guess Biden met with the beef industry leaders.
Oh, right. There's this big uproar right now because
the monopolization of beef and all that. And the guy who asked me, he's getting into the beef industry and as far as the processing and raising his own animals and stuff. And he was like, well, what's your opinion? What's the answer? And I said, well, here's the answer. It sounds simple, but I know it's very complex. It's got a lot of layers, and there'd be a lot of stuff to do with it. So my answer is, you need to eject the USDA out of the system, because the lobbyists for the big guys are the ones who push all the rules, regulations into the USDA.
I heard some crazy shit too, that they were labeling U.S. beef, but it was actually raised in like Uruguay.
So there's
all these loopholes. That
there's
they
some
did, and
crazy
they can still throw a USA sticker
shit.
on it.
Like, they'll send chickens to another country, process them there, freeze them, and send them back to us.
What?
They'll do that with certain beef too. They'll send it to a certain region of a certain country, put the freaking big K stamp on it, ship it back to Texas, and then sell it to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't it true too that they dye meat sometimes? Like,
so they'll use like beet juice is a big one to keep, here's the thing. You'll open up your package of beet, like your ground, right? And it'll be brown inside. That's just oxidated. It has nothing to do with whether it's good or bad. Right. Now, if it smells bad, obviously it's green and it smells like shit. You don't want to eat it. But they'll spray beet juice on it because visibly and mentally you've been trained to say, if it's red, it's good. Right? So
and you walk down those aisles.
Yeah, your first thing you see is you want to see a red piece of meat. You don't want to see the gray piece of meat, even though the gray is no different than the red.
And it's crazy because like the ribeyes and stuff that I get from Butcher Box and stuff, you pull them out and they're brown, gray.
They're a normal that's what a normal piece of beef. I mean, it should be red, obviously. Yeah. But it's not.
I mean, it's got red blood and stuff.
Yeah, it's not like red like the end of that lighter or something.
Exactly.
It's all false. It's just all advertising bullshit.
Right.
So I told him, I said, in my opinion, I think the state should be running our own meat industry. Keep it within our state, right? So how I would personally set it up is, I wouldn't allow the USDA to dictate how farmers process their meat and how it's distributed to its customers within the confines of Colorado, right? And every state could do this. I would say we collectively get together as ranchers and we build 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever it is, processing, or work together to do mobile processing units. And they're state inspected. The state inspects your restaurants, right? Or not the state, the counties, who is regulated by the state.
And they do the game processors too.
And they do the game processing and all that. So why can't we do our own beef industry? Well, because big freaking industry, lobbyists, it's just a whole it's not about the beef industry.
And that's
it's
one
about
thing
politics.
I like about Mountain Primal and why I buy from them is that it's all processed, everything packaged right there.
They've got a mobile unit they don't use anymore. Yeah. He actually asked me if I want to buy it, and I was like, I have no interest in that shit, dude. But so yeah, I think if we allowed the farmers to kind of take over, and then we can feed our that'll bring more jobs. That'll
not
bring
to mention they're not
going
to get such a rotten deal on the money end of it, right?
Exactly.
Like, they're getting fucked right now.
So you look at the USDA, like you build a processing place, right? You got Cargill or some big motherfucker like that who's lobbied to have all these rules and regulations that they can meet because they got the cash, right?
Right.
And then you got this little dude who's just trying to freaking butcher, slaughter, butcher, and provide meat for his local grocery stores and neighborhood people, right? Well, that poor bastard can't meet the USDA regulations because it's going to cost you upwards of, $2.5 million to build a processing facility. And then the rules change constantly. So let's say you got 50 of those going. The big guys are like, wait, we're losing money. They're going to be like, hey, let's lobby to get some more rules in there or regulation changes that'll force these fuckers to have to spend $500,000, and they can't do it, and we know it. So we just crushed their business.
Yep.
Cha-ching, business is back to us. I'm like, no, take that away from them. Like your whoever, you can still do the
we
big.
Have to get to some point like that, or
you have to have the large company to supply the masses, right? Because not everybody can afford a butcher box or a primal meat or anything.
Sure, yeah, it's not cheap.
I understand that, but if you, in my opinion, if you do that in micro increments over time, there will be that will inspire people to become farmers or ranchers, because people truly do want to feed, enjoy. I enjoy teaching people. I enjoy growing my own vegetables and stuff at home. Yep. I enjoy giving my stuff. Like if this was summertime, I would have probably brought you 20 pounds of vegetables.
Thanks, shout out too for all the stuff, man. We got all kinds of swag over there. I'm gonna have to try, and we got these cool challenge coins. We'll take some photos of those too and throw them up. It's super generous of you.
No, man.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
We'll give you more than stickers next time.
No, I don't want anything. Yeah, I know the Army guys always get patches and coins and shit. I got my collection. I get a lot of whiskey too.
Yeah, I bet.
They're like, "You like whiskey?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then this really sweet bottle of whiskey will show up.
Hell yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take that."
What would you suggest for somebody that's starting? Maybe they want to start processing their own game. Maybe they don't want to take it to the processor, but they're just doing it once a year. What are some of the key things that you would need?
So I think the best thing I could tell somebody is pick up an anatomy book. It doesn't have to be a new one or whatever. Just go find, Google something, pull something off of Amazon and kind of learn the anatomy of an animal. And when it comes to butchering, I tell everybody, follow the bone. I'm going to use a leg as an example, a rear quarter. I'm going to follow the bone down and peel the meat off the bone. I'm not going to cut the meat up into chunks. I just want to extract that bone. So follow the bone and follow the seams. Pull the individual pieces of meat out, of cuts out of a thigh or out of the front shoulder.
Sure.
And people ask me, what would you compare a deer to? So I would butcher a deer like I would butcher a lamb. So look up a basic. I wish I had books out right now. There are some good books out there. They're not the wild game ones I've seen.
Is that something you're working on?
Kinda.
Okay.
It keeps coming up in discussion constantly. Hey dude. Working on some other cool shit too. I'll come back to that though.
Yep.
Remind me. But just get a book of anatomy, of an animal anatomy. So I tell people I would butcher deer like you would do a lamb, because there's not a lot of good wild game butcher books out there. There's okay cookbooks, Hunter Gatherer, that guy Shaw, Hank. He's really his books are phenomenal. I think Ranella's books are pretty good. He does a good job. Adam Danforth has some. He's not wild game. He's domestic butchery. But Adam has some really good books on domestic. So I would compare a deer and antelope to butchering a lamb, the smaller game animals. And then I butcher an elk or a moose or a bison. I would butcher those almost like I would a beef animal. Sure. And people get kind of confused because the terminology has changed. The loin is the back strap. And I'll say the loin, I'll be an elk has a ribeye. And they're like, no, they don't. That's only on beef. And then you explain to them, the muscle structure of an animal is exactly the same. One's just bigger than the other, and one has more intermuscular fat than the other. That's it.
Right.
You can pull your ribeye. I say that. I wouldn't do bone-in ribeyes because of chronic wasting.
Like a tomahawk or something that. Yeah.
I could teach you how to do it without fucking with the spine, but it's not an easy skill to know. Sure. Right. So yeah, get a beef butchering book, and because all those cuts are in there, they're just not as big. Right. But they're still there. You can get the flat irons.
Get the fillet.
You can get the fillet. You can get the freaking Denver out of it. You can get the eye around. You can get the rib eye. You can get the hanger steak. Those are all there. So just pick up a book on butchering a lamb or butchering a beef.
And then as far as the processing stuff, what do you need? A dry something to get the air out of the packaging, right? When you go to package.
Yeah, so there's I use wax side butcher paper. you know. If I know the meat's going to be in there for a while, I'll wrap it really tight with saran wrap, get the air out, and then I'll hit it with the butcher paper. A lot of people like to use food savers and stuff. I break every food saver or whatever that comes across my way because I do it so much. I just burn the engines out of or the little motors out of them. Mm-hmm. So I don't even use it. I don't even fuck with them anymore.
Then you're really fucked, right? Because
you
don't have anything.
Yeah. So I try and teach people how to use butcher paper because you can get it anywhere. You can order it on Amazon and it'll hold, a year, 12, 18 months, easy. Hold your meat, 24 months, if you did it right, tight. Sure. So like good knives, some butcher paper, some good cutting boards,
decent cutting board.
Yeah. I suggest getting like the plastic ones, like the big 18 by
Teflon ones.
Teflon, like the big ones. Those because they clean easy. They don't grow bacteria.
Can hose them off. Yeah,
exactly. And just a little bit of education, teach yourself.
You teach some civilian classes too, right?
Yeah, I do every once in a while when I have time.
How would somebody find one of those classes, and what's the easiest way to?
You won't. I'm going to be completely honest until I start putting classes together. I mean, pretty much now everybody emails me and like, hey, will you teach us? And I'm like, I'll try, but I can't promise anything. I had a guy ask me, if I shoot an elk, I'm going to be hunting in third season. I'm like, cool, I'm hunting in third season too with some friends. And, they'll be like, well, if I get one, will you come to my house? I'm like, yeah, sure, $4,000. And they're like, oh shit. I'm like, you want me to leave my hunt to come butcher and teach you your crap? You're going to pay for it, bro. Right. And they're just like, oh, I get it. Nope. The light bulb hits. Like, I can do it for way cheaper, but like, let's think about what you're asking me to do. I'm giving up my stuff to come help you.
Sure.
And then, I get the perusal. I'll give you half the meat. And it's like, dude, I got 400 pounds of meat in my freezer. I don't need more meat. Yeah. I'll help you. I'll talk you through it on the phone. Like, I've done it for free for people, Hey, I'm stuck here. I got your number from so-and-so. And I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. Just do this. And they're like, oh shit, that was easy. Yeah. Yeah. It's a very intimidating skill set to learn when you think about what you're doing.
To do it properly.
Because
I still fuck shit up. I know I do.
I think most people. I've
gotten better over the years
too. Yeah. Like sometimes I'll be like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that cut. Right. But I'm also a person that likes to dive into that. Like, I want to find a new cut I want to develop my own cut. Sure. Like that's in the works right now. Yeah. Like I'm going to develop my own. Like I'm going to do something.
I'm so fortunate too because I've had generations of hunters in my family, and they've learned from their dads and grandfathers or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
we're kind of the same. Yeah, but I
so fortunate.
And you watch them, and you're like, I think I could do that better.
Do that a little bit better. Or they'll show you a trick.
It's just one of those things. There's so much information on the internet. Like you could Google some stuff, and you just need to like the basics. And the biggest thing is to seam out the whole muscle, right, and then go from there. And then the second part is, this is the biggest part of butchering, is knowing what that muscle is, what the structure of that muscle is, and how you're going to cook it. Because if you go to a true butcher,
sure, like if you're cooking rib meat or neck meat,
they're going to tell you how to cook that certain piece of meat, because every piece of meat cooks differently, right? So don't just educate yourself on, like, I'm a screaming ass butcher now, right? But I cook for shit. Or I turn anything into chili and stew. Right. Well, okay, whatever. But there's so much more and better things you can do with that piece of meat, and it rolls over to the military stuff. I'm like, hey, you've got this top round off, this beef animal, this cow. This is how you're going to cook a top round versus this is how you're going to cook the eye of round.
Sure.
And they're all in the same area. They're just, they got two different like toughness structures to them. Yeah,
for sure. So here's kind of a crazy question, but if somebody came to you and said, I want Jason the Butcher, here's $100 million. I want you to create a restaurant with a menu. What would be on it? And
what would be on that? A lot of wild game, because I love, obviously I love wild game.
I'd come there.
Yeah. and a lot of cured like charcuterie type stuff.
Okay.
You know, it would be a meat centric.
So what is
steakhouse.
that?
Charcuterie? It's just cured meats, like stuff you get in Italy, like capicola,
salami.
bresaola, yeah, salami stuff.
I
like
love
that.
all that stuff too.
Yeah, and that's all stuff
that could
you can
be
do
my
at home.
Italian blood though too. So.
And I get people that ask me to teach them how to do that too, and I learned a lot from.
That's
Mar.
a whole nother level of like salting. And
Oh, it's
all
crazy,
kinds of crazy stuff.
Like
right?
I'll give. There's a guy, Justin Brunson, in Denver, and even Alex Seidel. Justin is like fucking meat master.
Really?
River Bear Meats.
Okay.
And that dude could fucking crush charcuterie, like crushes it. Like, and then Elevation Charcuterie.
Now, is that I've always wondered, is that a dry aging process that happens with that, and then a salt cure or something?
Yeah. So you do your meat mix with whatever flavors and all that, and then whatever the USDA requires, it fucking changes all the time. So you put your nitrate in there and all that. Now you can do challenge studies, and you can use like different applications instead of using the pink salt stuff, the nitrates. And then like if you're doing just little sticks of salami, like 4 to 6 weeks, those are done. You get into capicola, which is the muscle on the pig,
right?
The neck muscle. You're looking at 3 or 4 months with that. It just depends on the size. Like it's very scientific. Right. Curing is very scientific, and I'm not like the grandmaster of curing. I'm good at it. I can do it at home. Like I've done it for people. That there's some guys in Denver, like the guy I bought this business from, like that dude's fucking amazing, Yeah. But Brunson and Nealon from Elevation, those guys have it dialed in. Like their curing techniques are probably some of the best in the country.
That's awesome. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
So the main purpose of this podcast, and you growing up in Colorado, Colorado native, I'm going to call you.
Yeah.
Is the whole reason I started this was to help raise some awareness, just because I'm seeing the influx in people here.
Yeah.
We're seeing so many more people get into hunting, fishing, all these
like
outdoor
thousands.
sports, which I think is great. I don't knock any of it, right?
Yeah.
Like I just want it to be there for my kid when he decides to hunt, and my grandchildren, and for generations.
Yeah.
What are some things that you see most commonly that people could be doing better?
Not treating the national forest as your fucking dumpster.
Yeah. Trash
like,
always comes up.
Trash always comes up. And so what I've noticed and what I hear is there's a lack of people a little bit like the boomer age, a little bit older than me. Like I'm almost 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that 65 and above, those guys
feel entitled,
are so unwilling to share their knowledge with somebody. So unwilling. Mm-hmm. It's very far and few in between. Like it's almost like it's just really fucking odd to me, to be honest with you, because you've got these new and don't get me wrong, there's shitbags that are wanting to get into hunting, but there's some really fantastic human beings that want to become hunters.
I don't think the majority of people aren't out there doing shit like this on purpose.
But no.
Yeah.
You get guys that are like, oh, I'm going to just go shoot whatever. Like the trophy hunter.
Sure.
You got a kid that's 25
They're
years old.
few and far between, though.
Few and far between. But it's the lack of the knowledge being passed on. You're passing it on to your child, right? But we've got the millennial Z or whatever the fuck they're called now, that kind of age group that don't have, they moved out of the city and they moved to mountain communities like you have. And they're like, I want to learn how to hunt. I want to eat clean meat. I want to live the outdoor lifestyle, but they don't know where to start because nobody's willing to teach them anything. You know what I mean? So
that's one of the things that I'm hoping to do here. It was another reason why we started, was just to, whether you're going for a day hike, or you're throwing on a backpack and going for 2 weeks in the backcountry to try to kill an elk, right? Whatever. Just talking to people that are experienced in certain skill sets, like yourself, maybe Tom Klum when it comes to archery. Yeah. He's one of those guys that's in that 60-year-old range that will help anybody and everybody that walks through.
See, that's
door
amazing.
and treats everybody the same, whether they're a celebrity bow hunter or
Yeah.
a handicap guy in a wheelchair, man.
Yeah.
Like he treats everybody the same.
It's so rare,
it's
though.
so rare.
Because the stories I hear, I went hunting, I went elk hunting. I couldn't go archery because I was working. The fucking military had me like running and gunning for like 3.5 years straight. And so I went rifle. I took my Arasaka. I had a cow tag or whatever. And I actually took Alex Seidel and his uncle and his brother. Like, they're kind of hunters, but they're all from Wisconsin. You know, they don't know shit
different,
about elk
yeah.
hunting. They don't know shit about the terrain. And I'm like, I'll take you guys. Let's go do this. You know, we took them elk hunting. None of us got an elk. Well, we ended up with a roadkill from not a roadkill, an illegal kill from DOW. Oh, yeah. Dudes are driving by and I got this bull elk hanging from the tree and they're like, nice job. I'm like, fuck yeah. I didn't shoot it, but
Yeah.
it is a nice bull. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, so in that's kind of like, I think we're lacking knowledge being passed on to these people who are very, very interested. I think it's awesome that Division Wildlife does Rookie Sportsman. Unfortunately, they can only take so many people.
Right.
I know they've got a laundry list of people.
They're so understaffed for all the responsibility that they have is unbelievable.
And I've talked to Jason Marsteiner about this, is why don't we develop a version of Rookie Sportsman, like privatize it, for people that want to get into it. Like, here's because it's not a
great
cheap
idea.
sport. It's not a cheap sport.
I have so many people that reach out to me and like, will you teach me how to bow hunt? And I'm more than willing to help, but you only have so much time. And there's only a small window when you can go hunt. And really that's when I take a break.
Yeah.
So
when
it's
you separate
like,
from people.
If you want to go with me and go as hard as I can, but I can't come to your unit and do that. If I draw my unit, I'm not going to go. Yeah. Maybe if I harvest or whatever. Early,
I'll only go if they're coming with me or, we all agree.
It's hard. It's hard to find time. But yeah, so if there was something private, it would be great. And I think podcasting has helped a ton too. There's a ton of great hunting podcasts out there. And
and I've been out there before, and I set up my camp. I was hunting by myself one year, and these people, like, literally, there's thousands of camp spaces, and they camp right fucking like, they literally park their truck right next to mine.
Yeah.
And I kind of walked over and I was like, are you hunting? Are you just camping? And they're like, oh yeah, this is, we're just getting into hunting. It was a husband, wife, and like a 14-year-old girl. And I'm like, I don't want to sound like a douchebag. And the husband's like, no, tell it, what do we do wrong? I'm like, you have a bunch of options for camps, right? Where you put your camp, like, literally, I could not build a fire and use your fire to keep warm. I'm like, there's like an untold, outdoorsman kind of thing. Like, you don't crowd
respect.
each other. Yeah. You don't camp on top of each other. And the husband was like, oh my God, I didn't know, we just saw another person. We were like, this must be a good place to be. And I was thinking if something happened, maybe, if somebody was around. I'm like, no, that's awesome. Yeah. And I don't have a problem with you camping here.
It's kind of part of that city mentality. And I think it goes back to, like, I had grandfathers and uncles and stuff that have passed on knowledge. But if I didn't know anything and grew up in an inner city, I would have no idea.
Yeah. Well, this was the cool thing about the story was, like, 2 days later, these guys pull up in a camper, a fifth wheel. And they literally parked not in a camp spot, like on the side of the road, the 4x4 road. I didn't even, like, I was just like, fuck, I don't want to talk to any more people. Like, right. I'm getting my ass kicked hunting anyway. I'm doing like 15 miles a day. Right. And that guy walked over to them, the guy that I talked to, and started talking to them. Next thing I know, they moved like 100 yards away and set up in a camp spot and all. I was like, well, that was cool. Yeah. And I did pack my shit and I went somewhere else because I was tired of seeing people. Right. But, so yeah, I think lack of passing the knowledge on, people using the freaking place as your dumpster. Like, one of my favorite places is over by Tarryall. I tried to go rabbit hunting there this year, and it was just like homeless encampment after homeless encampment.
Really?
Everything was trashed.
That's too bad.
I walked, I don't know, maybe 400 yards, and there was literally a dump in the middle of the woods. Mm-hmm. So that's a big issue. When it comes to hunting, it just sucks that people that want to get involved have no place to go to learn it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, there's a huge gap there that's missing. And even with fishing too, I feel like,
Yeah.
I feel like our rivers are getting hammered by, I don't know if you're a fisherman at all.
Oh yeah, I got 2 fly rods in the back of my truck.
But I mean, I think it's just uneducated people and they're just getting hammered. Like, and now there's guys that are night fishing the Dream Stream, you know, it's
Yeah.
constant.
Well,
like,
and
it's just
you see people yelling at each other and shit.
right.
You got the old
fist fights. Yeah.
yeah, the old school guys who are sitting there fishing their hole, and this dude that's just learning is, you know, coming up, not knowing that, you know, let that dude fish his area and go get out of the water, go around him and jump back in and go fish and continue on. They don't know that. And then you'll see him like screaming, "Why the fuck? Get the fuck away from me." It's like, dude, no, calm down. Like, hey man, I'm I'm working this area.
It's funny. We just had the same exact conversation
Did
with
you?
Jack Shirk, like to a T.
It's like, instead of being a dick,
Yeah.
be like, hey bro, this is how it works.
Right.
You know, this is kind of the ethics of fly fishing. Educate the guy. Don't just scream at him. You know, because
Call
now
him
you're
an
just going to
idiot.
turn him off. Like,
And
fly fishing.
It goes back down to like the fly shops or walking into archery shop, right?
Yeah.
If those guys behind the counter are pricks and don't want to share any of their knowledge,
Yep.
it's only going to make it that much worse out there.
And unfortunately, I've seen a lot.
There's
of
a
that.
lot of ego.
There's
in
a
some
lot
of
of
those
ego.
spots.
Like there's some archery places down in the Springs. People are like, where do I go get my bow? I'm like, just go to Bass Pro. Like, it's not the best, but the people there are super friendly.
That's why we only give shout outs to certain ones too here. But like Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear is incredible.
Where's
especially
that?
if you're getting into traditional. They're right down off of 70 and is it Kipling, I think?
Okay. I know
Yeah.
a lot of the spring stuff. I don't know a lot of stuff here.
Well, next time you're in town, stop
Yeah.
by and say hi to Tom and those guys.
Okay.
They're fucking awesome. And it's a phenomenal shop.
Yeah.
If you want to go look at longbows or traditional bows,
They got them.
there's no place like that in the world, I don't think.
Oh, that's nice.
It's crazy. Like they have an inventory and they sell online and they ship stuff all over. So they'll have 500-600 bows in there, I think, at certain points.
You know what I want to get into, which we can't do here? I want to get into like blowgun hunting and using a spear. I can't think of the guy's name. Tim something. I can't think of his name.
crazy.
He's like he spears
I saw a
hogs and
post,
shit.
and Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong. I think I sent it to you. There's a guy that spear hunted a grizzly.
Yeah, that's him. Same dude.
Is it?
And he killed a freaking black bear in Alaska with a blowgun.
Yeah, we got to
It's-
get this
it's
guy on the
it's
podcast.
Tim something. I can't. What is his last? Tim Wells.
Okay.
Yeah. Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy shit. I was like, oh, I'm so good. And one of my Green Beret
crazy.
buddies, he's like, I sent the stuff from him, and all of a
Could
sudden,
you imagine though? Like the ball, you got to have some balls to do that.
oh, it's awesome.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So we're burning through the time, man.
Yeah.
We've done almost 2 hours. What's next for you? What do you got coming up? You said you're going on a trip and
Yeah.
you're working on some projects.
Yeah, I'm heading to Georgia. I go to a veteran food event every year. It's called Le Piedmont Boucherie, which is basically a butcher's. We harvest a bunch of animals. We raise a shit ton of money for veteran organizations, including John's, Comfort Farms. And then from there, I'm going to Virginia, and I'm training with the Marine Corps. And then I come home, and then I train some more. Some of my other projects, I'm looking at possibly doing a butcher shop. Possibly. That's like not.
I'll be your first customer, dude.
Yeah.
I'll be camped out. I'm sure
my eyes
that
water.
you're gonna have a few.
And then, we were talking so I've had this idea, and I haven't, like, Fernando and I have the same manager, like talent manager guy. And I pitched this idea. It's called The History of Combat Feeding.
Should we share it on here?
I'm going to share it. I don't give a shit.
All right, cool.
And basically I want to take people back in time from like the Mongoloids or the Roman Empire and show how this kind of comes back to me. Show how those soldiers were fed through time and how we came to develop an MRE or a UGRA.
Dude, I think you're onto something.
So we go back in time and we circle, because history repeats itself. Here we are, how many hundreds of years later, going back to utilizing whole animals and foraging skills and bushcraft skills and all that. So I'd show the
So
history.
would it be like a cooking show too, where you're preparing some of the
Yeah,
stuff?
so
You're
kind
going to
of
be cooking horse and stuff like that?
So I want to go like and visit like indigenous areas and be like this. How did they do things back then?
Right.
You know, but military specific. Like I got a buddy who was a Finnish SF dude. You know, like, hey Tommy, can you hook us up with those guys? I got connections to the German SF. I got connections. I can pretty much get connections anywhere I need, and just kind of show how where we came from and where we are now. Sure. One of the last classes I did with the Marine Corps, they had, I think it was some dude from Australia, some dude from Britain, some dude from Brazil.
One of my favorite shows is I think it's called The History of Food or something, right?
Yeah.
Or
It was a little YouTube thing. He's done. He went back to Disney. He went back to work for Disney. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, he had some cool stuff. Yeah. So similar to that, only on a much, much larger scale.
That's awesome, man.
So yeah, I just kind of like, let's go back and kind of recreate how militaries. So they brought, like, these guys were out here at Fort Lee, or we're at Fort Lee, and one of they were all like colonels, I think. They were all kind of high command dudes. And one of them gave like a little talk after I gave my talk. They watched me do like 20, 30 minutes of instruction. I think I was butchering a lamb or some shit. And they came back and they were like, this is one of the coolest things we've ever seen. We've never seen this in our country. And what you're doing with this gentleman, and, you know, they're referring to me, is going to change your life. Like, you're going to become a better soldier, a better Marine.
Think about how much better you feel when you have a nutritious diet and you're well fed.
Morale goes up, nutrition goes up, brain fog goes away.
One of the times I'm the crankiest if I'm hungry, bro.
Yeah,
I'm pissed. Right?
Well, you think about like a Green Beret or a Delta dude or somebody, like, think of their op tempo.
Yeah.
Think of how much they're running. Like, I got a buddy who's a retired SEAL, and he's like, dude, 18-hour days, fucking nonstop. He goes, I left, I weighed 220. I came home, I weighed 165 pounds.
Right.
He goes, because if I would have had that skill, I would have came home at like 240 of muscle, because I would have just I would have killed.
Sure.
He's like, I would have slayed fucking goats in people's backyards and just ate them. you know, stuff like that.
Right.
So working on that project, and Fernando and I are working on a couple other things, TV type stuff. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to. Yeah.
Well, keep me posted on it all. We'll share it here. This has been a lot of fun, man. I really want to have you back,
dude.
Whenever you have time.
This is awesome.
So yeah, you're welcome here anytime.
I'm an hour and a half away.
Yeah, and let us know when you're cruising through or whatever.
Okay.
We'll make it convenient for you too.
Yeah.
And I want to come chop up some meat with you sometime too.
So we got a thing going on. I should have 82nd Airborne coming out in February.
Okay.
At Jason's place.
Nice.
More than welcome to come out and join us.
All right. Yeah, I might do that for sure.
It's gonna be cold as fuck, but we're gonna have a good time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Jason's a great dude.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jason too for
dude,
setting us, connecting us.
Another phenomenal human being.
He's a great guy. Before we jump off though, websites, Instagram, Twitter, all that sort of stuff.
My Instagram's just Jason the Butcher. I do and I don't post a lot of shit, I'm kind of I don't like I'll post some of my Marine stuff or my training, but I don't post a lot of it. I got a cheesy website that I'm trying to get fixed. It's just Jason Nauert info. That's it.
Okay. Cool. And if somebody wanted to contact you, what's the best way? Is it through
Instagram? It's like through Facebook or something.
Okay.
Like Rocky Mountain Institute of Meat I have on Facebook. I have Jason Nauert. Like, most people get to me through like Facebook or direct message at Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect, man. Thanks again, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, this is great.
We got to get some photos with this before you leave.
Yeah,
the hog splitter.
Who's giving up their hand? I just want to see if they'll take it off in one clean swipe.
He's the co-producer, so I still got to have mine to.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
you need him.
Only his left hand, right? Which one does the switcher?
I need my right hand. Okay.
He needs them both. He's got to do the stranger sometime.
That's right. Awesome, Jason. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks everybody for listening.
We'll catch you on the next one. Yeah, man, it's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. Also, if you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com. I want to give a big shout out to everybody that supports us on Patreon. You guys don't realize how much this helps to bring you amazing content with badass guests, pay our electric bill, and much more. So much love and thank you for your support. If you're new to the Mountainside Podcast and you like the content that we're creating here, the simplest way to support us is through Patreon. Not only are you supporting the Mountainside Podcast, you have the option to listen to us 100% ad-free and much more. Simply just visit patreon.com/the Mountainside, or you can simply open the show notes wherever you're listening to the podcast right now and look for the Patreon link. This episode is brought to you by Uncana CBD. If you're looking to trust a natural solution, then look no further than Uncana to help you curb anxiety, get better sleep, helping with long-term pain, joint mobility, muscle recovery, and many other benefits. Then you need to try a full spectrum or broad spectrum CBD, and the only brand that I trust is Uncana. I use their products daily, and I can attest to you of how well it works. Uncana is also veteran owned and operated and is just an incredible company that lives in the outdoors. Whether they're sponsoring professional rock climbers, dirt bikers, skiers, and many other athletes, helping veteran communities get outside, this is an incredible company with an incredible product. Because they are a sponsor here at the Mountainside Podcast, and you're listening to this ad right now, you can receive 10% off your entire order every time that you visit uncana.com. All you have to do is simply enter promo code TMS at checkout to receive 10% off your entire CBD order, apparel, canine products, or whatever Uncana has to offer just by simply typing in the code TMS at checkout. Once again, that's promo code TMS at uncana.com. This is a Mountainside special announcement, and I'm thrilled to bring you the news of our new partnership with Origin. There's nothing I love more than supporting America, showing my patriotism, and buying 100% American-made products. Origin Maine is one of the only companies that I've found out there that makes an incredible product that's 100% designed, produced, grown, built, and manufactured right here in the USA. So if you're looking for 100% American-made boots, high-quality denim, jiu-jitsu gis, rash guards, hoodies, bags, Jocko Clean Energy Fuel, supplements, and much more, look no further than originmaine.com. If you want to support the U.S. economy, the U.S. workforce, then you can 100% trust Origin and the amazing people that are running this company. You as a listener can truly reap the benefits of buying American-made products at a discount. All you have to do is simply use promo code TMS at checkout, and you will receive 10% off your entire order every time that you visit originmaine.com. Once again, that's promo code TMS, the number 10, TMS10 at originmaine.com. We are also brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee Company. This is America's coffee. It is roasted right here in the USA. It is veteran owned and operated and offers a lot more than coffee to veteran communities across the country. Black Rifle Coffee is my go-to whether I'm in the studio, at home, in the backcountry, or traveling on the go. They have a multitude of products for you to choose from to get some incredible coffee. I love the steep bags. The instant coffee, hands down, is the best instant coffee I've ever tasted. And I'm a huge fan of a multitude of their roasts. So whether you're doing a French press, a pour over, putting it in an espresso machine, you're going to get incredible fresh roasted coffee from Black Rifle every time. Now here's the best part. Because you're a Mountainside listener, you can receive 20% off your entire order every time that you visit blackriflecoffee.com simply by using promo code Mountainside. Wherever you're listening to the podcast right now, click the Black Rifle link and use the promo code Mountainside at checkout.